Hi Teresa, I see that we have a video here with you in red. So I am going to start the video now and let's see how you guys do. So first thing that I notice is that you're landing in your post kind of back towards the back of the saddle, and that comes from, if you look at your leg, and we're going to pause right here at 19 seconds. If we look, and you, even as you're riding, if you look down at your knee, you'd be able to see your toe. So we want to keep our lower leg back underneath us and underneath our hip. If we did our imaginary line, we'd have ear, shoulder, hip, and then a diagonal line to the back of your heel, and we want to just bring that back. You got a good upper body in alignment, but when our leg is out in front of us, that actually causes us to land farther back in the saddle, farther back on their spine, so that we're not getting our weight carried over the tree points. And when that happens, it's really hard for the horses to put their head up, they do put their head up. It's hard for them to get their back up. And it actually, a fun fact I just learned, it causes our body weight to increase, how it's being carried on the horse. When we carry ourselves in alignment over the tree and over the front of our saddle where the balance is supposed to be, that actually cuts our body weight in half. So that was a fun fact I learned from a saddle fitter this week. So I'm going to click play again. So as you're going around, a great exercise would be to stand up in your saddle and do this at the halt first, do it at the walk first. And I'm actually going to pause again because I want to explain this exercise. So in centered riding, it's called the Indian pose. And you think of it as, that big Indian statue that with the tall, proud head and arms straight out, pointing like, airplane wings, and that it's just real open chest and just this big, proud Indian. So when we do it with the horses, at the halt, stand up in the saddle, farther than a jump position. Your lower leg is going to slide back. That is the point of this. And you're going to have it so that your center is more so over the front of the saddle. And it's okay to feel too far front. And it's okay for your lower leg to feel too far back. That's the point of this. So when you can do that, walk, trot, and eventually canter, that is fabulous. And grab mane. There's never, especially when we're working on ourselves, there's never a moment where you can't grab mane. I'd much rather see a rider do that or grab the front of the saddle, or you can put an old stirrup leather around their neck than to balance off the horse's face. So we would have you stand all the way up, lower leg's going to come back, and then when you sit at the walk or the halt, we'll keep that lower leg back and underneath you. And then to progress into the posting trot, you would just post at the walk. And it's hard. There's no oomph from the horse to help get you out of the saddle. So you post, keeping that lower leg back, and just think you stand up, you sit down, you stand up. And this is weeks of strength work. So that, number one, will get your bottom building blocks back underneath. I like to also think that about closing the angle behind my knee when I need to get a little bit more finesse. But for you, we'd start with a big exercise to really get the mind-body connection changed, really get those muscle groups, the big muscle groups activating. This is glute, hamstring, back of your leg, abs, and more abs, and lower back too. The whole core would get involved. Riding absolutely involves deep personal core muscles that we don't use for much other things besides riding horses. So I'm going to click play again. So for your connection, that comes a little bit from having your building block, that bottom base block of your legs, a little far out, and having us posting towards the back of the saddle. And right here, as you're coming across at 45 seconds, I just paused real quick. Now I'm back up at it. You can see that you're landing towards the back. It also looks like your saddle might be rear balanced a little bit. So a lift shim pad in the back. And the more I'm watching, I would love to see the back of your saddle lifted up. Great saddle fitter is vital for the horses, for us. A perfectly fitting saddle is a game changer. So as he's being, tossing his head around, he would be one that I would have my little bit lecture on. If he has a single joint snaffle in, the single joint can act as a nutcracker onto their palate. So check. If you have a single joint, try a double joint. I would love the Mylar bits. They have no joints that can whack a horse and it disperses the tongue pressure. So right here, I'm just leaning towards, this fussiness is something, his bit might not be happy. So you just came across the pole and across. So thinking about how you're posting, we want to think about posting through our arms and that we can keep the reins as consistent as possible. And you're doing a really good job at it. We just want to see that the hands don't move with a stable, fixed elbow joint. We want that elbow joint to open and close just a little bit. And a good way to, practice this is put your hand at horse riding level on a chair, a counter, the side of your couch. I'm sitting on mine, so that's where I can think of that. I have a big armrest. And just raise up and down, but keeping your hands still and your hands rested on something. And I'm going to pause here because I'm doing a lot of talking. Rest your hands on something that's horse riding level and then squat up and down, keeping your hands still. And you'll realize how much you need to flex and extend your elbow joint especially, and then the shoulder joints. So for you, and when we're riding, because our post, yes, we're making, a bigger move with our seat going up and down. Our elbow and shoulder move not as much as we do when we're doing the standing off the horse exercise. We want to exaggerate things so that we can get the mind-body connection open and then finesse them back down when we're on our horse. So play with activating that elbow joint and being a little bit more fluid through there. So we're going to click play again. So here in our leg yield, we can see that there's just a little bit too much bend to the left and he's not supported enough on his right. So leg yield, we don't want to use bend as a crutch. We want it to support us. And again, he's flicking his nose around. Let's check out that bit, play with some options. This left leg is much better than the right. We could still bring it back a little bit. Looks like your foot is a little bit deep in the stirrup. We want to connect to the ball of our foot. And centered riding, we call it the bubbling spring. I think that's the same for like Tai Chi and Taekwondo. That's where the energy comes back up our foot from the ground. And yes, we're not on the ground when we're on a horse, but that's our grounded connection is through our stirrup. So you're on your center line again. Thinking about starting the leg yield from the hind leg. And that's tough. And we want to ride our horse from back to front, yet many of us ride the leg yield front to back. So see if you can get him to just move his hind leg over a little bit, just kind of slow that shoulder from going so far over, let the hind leg stretch. He could easily need, and I'm going to pause again, because now you just cantered. So we're paused at 4 minutes and 11 seconds. He could easily need more flexibility of the hind legs. A great exercise for that is on the ground to be by his head and stay close to him. And I use a whip because we more just need it as an extension of our arm. We don't use it, to whip him or anything. It's just my hand cannot reach while I'm at his face to touch his hind leg. So getting him to walk kind of pirouettes on the forehand around you, crossing over behind and really flexing that hind leg and reaching through diagonally as if you would on a leg yield or a half pass in front of them. Horses don't really flex their pelvises on their own laterally. We all ask them of it. So doing some groundwork to just warm them up. It's like horse yoga. So we're going to click play again. We just cantered and are fussy in the bridle again. Again, going back to that bit. And we can see here that just the elbows are a little abrasive. We want to follow him a little bit more. And it's tough to follow a horse that is playing in the bit and reactive kind of into the bridle. So just think about swinging that elbow. And we're cantering around some. Your legs are good at the canter. Oh, and we're going over a pole. Again, at the canter, doing that standing up Indian exercise would be awesome. And just getting your feet a little bit out of your stirrup. Just bringing them back so you're a little bit more in your bubbling spring. Hips are moving nice. I can see your knees moving nice. Just relaxing and flowing through your chest. Kind of thinking about dropping down. Yep. And right there, in that canter transition, we saw the inside leg kind of popped out in front of you. Just again, bringing it back. If you can do walk, trot, canter, jumps, transitions, everything and anything in the stand-up Indian pose, you will be strong, fit, and have a solid lower leg. So here in the corner, just want to see that elbow is following, relaxing through the back of your arm, using it when you need to. Again, I'd love to put my hands in this horse's mouth and just see if there's anything up with the bit. We're over the pole. That was much nicer, but just keep everything flowing. And we're looking good here. Keeping that bounce and energy kind of dropping through our calves. Your ankles are a little bit tight, and we can see as you come by this camera lady, the stirrup has gone way into kind of the crook of your boot and your arch. So that alone, if you can get your foot on the stirrup at, the ball of your foot, you'll have a more solid base that isn't encouraging you to click out. And also, we're going to pause. I'm going to find the view that I want right here. There we go. Okay, so we are paused at exactly 6 minutes and 30 seconds. So I think part of it is you're fighting your saddle too. So if our stirrup bar is too far forward, it's going to encourage our foot to be forward. So to bring our stirrup back and the actual, mechanics of it, if you don't have an adjustable stirrup bar, which most saddles don't, you can take a bit keeper for a full cheek snaffle and put it on your stirrup bar and then put your stirrup back on. And that literally will just bring your stirrup leather back, maybe a quarter of an inch or half an inch, however wide those are. I personally require all of the safeties on the stirrup bars to be down, which gives me a little bit more room for this keeper to slide the stirrup back a little bit, the stirrup leather. I also think it's very much, there's so many safety reasons why to keep that little safety down. But I think part of it, you're fighting the saddle a little bit. And if it was raised up just a touch, if you don't have a lift back pad or like a thin line that you can shim, take some dish towels and just bulk it up a little bit back there. It's a little bit of a ghetto fix, but believe me, saddle fitters have told me to use that until the clients get an adjustment made. So we're going to click play again. Yep, and that right leg just likes to go a little far out. So again, we're going to go back to that Indian pose for you to just get stronger and stronger. Over the pole, and he looked at it and was very nice and good canter transition. Yep. And we just want to check that bit. Every time he shakes his head, I just want to check that bit. Good. And we're just a little tight in our lower arms here. Think about keeping all of your muscles really squishy. And I know it's not what a lot of us ladies like to hear, is be jiggly, but you have permission to be jiggly on your horse. And relax down through your shoulder blades, thinking about connecting your shoulder blades to the opposite hip. Another exercise that you could do, and I'm going to pause again because I'm going to talk. So these videos or my recordings are going to get very long. Ooh, I think I'm running out of time. Okay. I think I have a very important exercise I want to talk about, and we might end up cutting this a little short. What you can do is take an ace bandage and go across your body, from your shoulder, and you make it like a big ace bandage loop across your shoulder, down, across your like your left shoulder to your right ankle, and then same right shoulder to your left ankle. When you're on the horse, you'll have to have somebody help you set that up, but it's a great way to connect your diagonal pairs. On my Instagram, I know there's a picture of me with this setup on when I was at a clinic. It's so wonderful to connect your whole body and get that diagonal pair firing and figure out, the relationship between your left hip or left ankle, left leg to your right shoulder. So your canter transitions and the moments that you've gone over the poles, I just want to throw that elastic X on you. So check out my Instagram. I know there's a picture on there. You might have to dig it up a little bit. So we're just going to finish off the video because I've done a lot of talking. Yep, and lower leg back, and if we just had that foot connected into that stirrup a little bit more, and that stirrup physically back a little bit more with the little keeper on your stirrup, landing kind of in the front of your saddle, and yet when we just did the transition, you landed just a little bit back, just a touch, for having your weight being carried in the back of the saddle, but I think you're fighting the saddle a little bit. I'd love to see the back of it raised up. So kind of moral of your exercises, standing up in the saddle, your hips are going to be kind of like parallel, or what would it be? Perpendicular. Oh, I'm blanking on the word. Your hips are going to be straight above your knees, and your lower leg is going to come back in this standing up exercise, and you're going to feel like your legs are way too far back. That's the point for you. Doing that with a foot that is connected to the ball of your foot is on your stirrup. And you might have to have somebody eyeball it for you because your brain's going to go, this feels weird. Everything's going to feel weird at first. So for you, I would love to see the standing up exercise. For you to look at on my Instagram for the Elastic X. Anything and everything in the centered riding books is fabulous for all of us, but centered riding will have a lot of images of what I'm talking about, especially with the elbows, especially with the standing up exercise. And then for your horse, I'd love to see saddle fit check, raised up in the back, just a touch, and then check his bit. If he's in a single joint, definitely try him in a double joint. Anything, loose ring French link, is kind of one of my go-tos along with the Mylar. It doesn't have to be anything super fancy. He's a great guy. He's an honest guy. You can just see that something is disconnected. And when there's the head tossers like that, I like to look at something, take the rider out of the picture and assess all of the things that's, equipment being used, and then go to you. A lot of times it's us, but for him, I'm really leaning towards the bit. So yeah, keep up the good work, get stronger. And bring your stirrup back in the stirrup bar by putting one of the little French link, or not French link, the full cheek snaffle keeper things. I don't know what they're exactly called. They're like $5 on Amazon. I found a bunch of them, to just get your physical stirrup leather back, and then that'll help you keep your lower leg back underneath you. And yeah, that's all.